5 years of happiness and joy every week, coming to you about hospitality and marketing and all the other cool stuff associated with our wonderful and fabulous industry. Of hospitality. I am hopefully not your only host today, but I am your first host. And for that, I get to go over and talk about all the cool stuff that I want to talk about today until anybody else shows up. But no, Robert Cole, one of our other co-hosts who has been with us since almost the very beginning, always gives us a well-curated list that he distributes also to the marketing board of HSMAI, which is the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International, which we are also simulcasting on Facebook for both the HSMAI APAC, Asian Pacific region, HSMAI EU, European region, and all of North America. And we are also simulcasting on Periscope, which is Twitter, and also YouTube and Facebook and this week by special, we're also being simulcasted on Fuel Travel's Facebook page. Mr. Robert Cole, how are you, sir? Good morning.
Fuel Travel's Facebook page. Oh my!
We hit big time, buddy.
Changed my setting and my gosh,
yeah.
Wow.
Hey. Yep, we are now Stuart Butler from Fuel Travel.
Straighten my hair if I'm in Fuel's.
Yeah, come on. We gotta up the game now. We're on Fuel Travel's Facebook page. We can't be slouching no more.
That's right. So does that mean Stuart will be on our show?
He has intent to be on the show. As with all things, those pesky clients get in the way of our co-hosts sometimes. Fortunately, we have no clients, so we don't care, right? We
Since we're on Fuel Travel's Facebook page, I thought Stuart just dumped all those client relationships to his underlings. That is what he calls
yeah.
With, isn't it? Or
we're not supposed to tell his clients that, though.
Underlings. I can't.
No. We're not supposed to tell his clients that. To his clients, he's on the ball on all of them. He is the hands on the keyboard. Okay,
that is the messaging that he provides.
Yes. Don't talk about the fact that Stuart usually is doing bingers at 11 in the morning at some bar nearby for Manchester, and raising a glass and handing off anything he can to anybody that even knows how to spell the word PPC. So no, those are nothing. Now you're in the witness protection program. You're in front of a window.
I am in front of a window because I'm in my daughter's apartment. I am in live from Mac Davis Lane across from AT&T Jones Stadium in Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock, Texas, which actually is a really cool place. Lubbock, Texas is a very cool place.
Actually, if I change, I may be able to. Whoops! I'll have to stand up to do this. I also have a very nice pink mug to drink from today. So
you have changed your style preferences radically.
I don't know. Yeah, we can.
I don't know if that's better or worse, to be honest with you.
There's a stadium out there right across the street.
Oh, you're right. There it is. Yeah, you got a little bit of pixelation going on, but all's well. Stuart's coming in the room, and so we got to not mention anything we've mentioned before about him. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no talking about the vendors over at the lunch, for Manchester. Nope. And handing stuff down to underlings or none of that stuff.
Stuart, I'm sure, is completely sober the way he always is on every show we do.
That's a hard stretch to really even say. Let's say he's moderately cognitive.
In marketing, you got to set the bar really high. It may not be something that people believe, but you can average it.
Mr. Stewart,
how are you?
Raising your praises. We weren't saying anything bad about you, and we were honored that we are being simulcasted on your Facebook page for Fuel Travel.
I feel like you were casting aspersions there.
We don't even know what those words mean.
Those are big words for us, okay?
You were being mean. How about that?
No, we are honored. We realized that we got to dress up nice. One of us has to take a shower at least. We're on the big game now. We got.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, it's
Yeah,
early.
to the
It's
what
the
1,000 people on our Facebook page? I don't know.
Oh
the
yeah,
ninth.
we're rocking and
It's the
rolling now,
ninth of
boy.
the month. It's the 9th of the month. Lauren, his personal hygiene regimen to bathe once a month, whether he needs it or not. So
Well, I'm still a week away
today,
from that. I'm still a week away from that. It's a midnight. Hey,
Yeah.
I did see from Tim Peter, who unfortunately will not be able to join us today. He has client obligations. Actually, no, I think he's doing family obligations. Seemed very up in arms about your headline story, Mr. Robert.
well, I sometimes throw in stories to bait. Just because it's the top story doesn't mean that I necessarily
Agree with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
endorse it completely. I mean, sometimes the top of the news starts with very disturbing news that people.
Yeah, well, that is it is disturbing, and well warranted that Mr. Tim Peter would be up in arms about it. I'm going to post the link up for it, but
Wait, I thought he was completely in supportive of this, thinking.
oh yeah.
I thought he wrote it. I'll be honest. I thought it was a piece directly from
Oh,
Tim
he
Peter.
is so going to chase you down.
It's in line with all of his beliefs, for sure.
Oh, he
Exactly.
is so going to chase you down.
Well,
Hold on, let me get the link over to
that's
us.
what happens when our hosts are not on the show.
That's
All of a sudden, we can tell people what we think they believe. So
That's right.
Yeah.
which may or may not be diametrically opposite to what they actually believe.
So, Mr. Robert, while I make sure that we are unlisted, we go from unlisted to public on YouTube here real quick, perhaps you could tee up our wonderful topic.
Yeah, a fellow Focusrite analyst, Peter O'Connor from the UK, from the Essex Business School, wrote an interesting opinion piece on OTAs that actually I thought was kind of interesting. I'll have to admit that there are a lot of articles and opinion pieces that get written which basically say the OTAs are the devil, kill them with fire, do not use them, just cut off all your relationships, which is really kind of bad advice, right? I mean, yeah, they are successful businesses, which create some sort of value, otherwise they wouldn't exist. But yeah, I don't think going all in one way or the other. Peter took kind of the opposite tack, let's just say, with 4 online travel agency myths to stop believing now. And some of these were, I would say, controversial because he took a rather absolute.
I'll take a word from Tim Peter, sponsored.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It did
I don't
seem
know.
like it was a piece written by Booking.com or Expedia for sure.
Yeah.
It
Which
certainly
he's
did
not
echo-
affiliated with either, right? Which is,
No,
but
no, he works for a school. He's normally very independent. Actually, he's done some really good work. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he was kind of doing a counterpoint for the same reason that I
Yeah,
haven't spoken with him.
I would like to understand his motivation for the article because I don't think he's an intelligent guy with a lot of knowledge. I don't feel like he can really believe literally everything he said in this.
Yeah.
It's hard to swallow some
I
of the
feel
things.
like it was a sensational piece to stimulate conversation, which
Right.
It is.
apparently is doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
let's
which is why
let's
I
go
put
one
it
by
at-
one with
I
them because
thought-
there's 4
that's why
points
I
he tries
put it
to
at
make.
the top of the list.
Yeah, he tries to make 4 points. Okay.
Yeah.
The first point is the statement OTAs are duopolies, and he says false. And then he goes on to cite that there are several platforms and all niche players and so forth that are in there.
Yeah, I
Right.
would say for OTAs. OTAs are duopolies when you're speaking of OTAs, right? You've got
Right.
to
Yeah.
frame them. Now, again, a lot of the OTA lobbying groups and things like that will say, no, it's not because it's only 20% of the business overall, right? Or something like that. But when you look at the US, I believe the combination of Expedia-owned properties and Booking-owned properties is about 94% or something like that.
Of all OTA revenue.
Of
Yeah.
all- and that's pretty.
I would say that's a duopoly
duopoly.
for sure. And the thing is, over the years, anytime someone else threatens them and comes up, they get mopped up, right? They bought
Well-
people like Hotels.com, and I mean Priceline bought Booking.com. It wasn't always Booking Holdings, right?
And Priceline kind of made Booking.com, right?
Right,
Because
so-
it was good. It was a little agency model, 8% commission player sort of thing, just kind of starting off. And actually, Expedia going into Europe, I think, is what created most of Booking.com because
Probably.
they got so aggressive on their fees, tried to do in Europe what they did in the US, which failed miserably and left a massive gap for Booking to just, come in
Yeah, to mop up for sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
what I didn't like about this is one, there was no data in there, right? It was very much
Right.
opinion stated as fact, and
Right.
I felt like if you look at and scrutinize the data, I think it tells a different story. But two, he tried to conflate things, right? He tried to conflate OTAs and meta search and Google and Amazon and other stuff, which
Sure.
is Google a massive driver of revenue and bookings and distribution in travel? Absolutely, but it's not an OTA.
And they
It's
will
not an
never be an
OTA.
OTA. They have zero interest in being an OTA.
Right. So,
Yeah,
all right,
And
so
they don't
so
want
number
the
one, he's wrong,
responsibility when
right?
things
Yeah.
goes wrong to provide customer service and things like
Yeah.
that, and flight changes and all that mess.
Yeah.
They just want to be in it, which is a great advertising, but you have better margins by not having to do any of that operational
Right.
stuff. Right?
So-
It's genius.
So the second point is that OTAs are restrictive, and he says that this is also false. He says that since they're pay for performance channels, that they're not restrictive at all. You have, you only have to pay them once they've contributed to it. And it's okay. At face value, that statement is true, but controlling.
I think that is an excellent point. Hotels, structurally, business model wise, love OTAs because it's low risk, pay for performance. But the problem is they don't like paying for performance if it's not an incremental booking that they've never had a relationship with that guest before.
But
right?
I would also add to that the
The double-edged
displacement
sword.
that the OTAs create, the insertion they place of themselves between the direct opportunity of a guest to engage with the property compared to having to or been forced to or have been just simply hijacked by the OTAs, and then them getting their margin from simply bringing to the same person. As I equated, it's like somebody standing in your lobby and if somebody's walking back in, this guy slouches off the wall, grabs him, brings him in, checks him in, and says, "Hey, I brought this guy to you," even though they're already doing it.
But I wouldn't go that far. The truth is somewhere in the. It's like Amazon. Millions, billions of products, probably in terms of transactions, get sold on Amazon. The thing with Amazon is it kills brands, right? Because it's
Right.
a distribution channel. Now, again, Amazon does some very nasty things, like in the battery sector. They look at it and go, "Hey, everybody in Duracell or whatever aren't playing ball. We'll go make our own."
Right.
Put it in there and sell, undercut their price, do all sorts of that. Not so good, not really illegal, but
They're
kind of
definitely
putting their thumb on the
leveraging
scale.
their position to their own
Yeah.
Right.
advantage, right? Which
And
is what
that's the key.
OTAs are
And that-
doing. Yeah.
And that's what brands do. And that's
Yeah,
what
for sure. For sure.
most capitalistic businesses try
Right.
to do. At least their shareholders and many members of their board will tell them to do more of that or lose their job.
Yeah.
Sort of
And with
thing,
this
so.
point, I think I would have less of an issue with it. Like he's close to the truth, but I would have less of an issue with it if, the OTAs are very strict in what they allow in terms of commission. And then beyond that, they're doing things like bidding on the brand of the property, like Lauren
Right.
kind of touched on. And to me, that creates some kind of friction that shouldn't exist, because
Right.
they've got commissions to a point where the math works for them to bid on your brand and they'll still make money. And then
Right.
that has all kinds of consequences, right? One, they're hijacking people with an intent to book your property or at least an interest in your property. But two, it drives up your own advertising expense
Right.
because now there's more competition on your brand keywords, forces you to have to bid on your brand keywords, and you have to spend more money because they're all competing and driving up the rate. So yeah, I think it's a little disingenuous to say they're not restrictive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that I think we brought up last week or the week before that Booking.com coming out and generously saying, "Hey, all of you hotels, you can bid on the Booking.com keyword and put your hotel name and us in there together and advertise," which is evil genius, kind of. So, I don't know how many hotels will look at that and go, "Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
give them a taste of their own medicine," which only benefits Booking.
Yeah,
Right, being
for
the
sure.
marketplace, so.
It doesn't excite me. We actually haven't tried. We've talked about it with a couple of clients, but no one wants to really try it yet. So we probably will, but I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
mean,
what.
it's probably good for an A/B test. I don't think it
Yeah,
turns out well. Yeah,
yeah.
long term, you're basically, especially in the U.S.
Hmm.
One of the things, Booking had very good results this past. Actually, I think that's another
Yeah,
article we have in
it's one of the
Booking.
articles. Yeah, their
They had
revenues.
really good booking results. And one of their things to grow their shares, they've got to penetrate more of the US market and steal more share either from Expedia or the hotel brands or property direct sites, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
Mhm.
guess
All
what
right.
will probably be happening?
So the third point he makes is OTAs drive low quality revenue. He says is mostly false.
I'd say it's mostly true.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Got an
close, right?
inversion there.
The
Yeah.
real stats that I have seen, they are doing better the more broader, the more that their mix of business mirrors the actual travel industry.
Yeah.
It starts getting a little bit better. But boy, when you start looking into like Las Vegas and things like that, generally the individuals booking through an OTA are not the high value players, the high value, diners, the high value, bottle service
And
folks.
Right,
and
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 I
They
think
aren't
I think
booking
it
through that
loses
channel.
sight of what really. And again, I work primarily, almost exclusively with independent properties, right? So it's a different value proposition. So one, we don't have these franchise fees that we're having to pay, because one of his arguments is, well, you're already paying this percentage to the franchise regardless, right? But I think you lose lifetime value from OTA guests a lot of times, right? Because a lot of times if you don't do a good job, and a lot of people don't do a good job of getting people to come back and book direct next time. And Tim's always saying this, if you get someone from an OTA the first time, great. But if you get them from the OTA the second time, you're doing it wrong. And so I think when you have someone book direct versus book on an OTA, your chances of getting them to come back and stay with you again and again is a lot higher. So to just look at it as a short-term, one-time, this revenue was better from OTAs than direct is again, it's a little disingenuous, because it's not taking into account the lifetime value.
Well, also just from a revenue management strategy perspective, OTA's value proposition really begins to roll in when you have a diminished demand cycle and you're looking to generate what their value proposition is. And again, this goes back to not everything about OTAs is bad and evil, and they're a viable, usable
great.
channel and resource.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have functionality and value, and their biggest, when it comes to whether it be independent or branded, is that when you have a low demand cycle that you can't get your messaging out higher into the funnel for discovery, that the OTAs have the money, they spend the money to be in all the markets and can bring business that may not be aware of you to you. That's the value proposition, and to do that, you have to give value to them. So you do inherently generate less revenues or lower revenue bookings because you're using them as that functional tool. When you're high yield,
there's another mouth to feed, right?
yeah,
And
but
they're
if you're
providing
in high demand,
access
when
to
you're
a guest and marketing you don't have to provide.
right, but in a high
That's
demand
right.
cycle, you don't need to give them inventory as much, and you rate yourself higher. So of course, you're not going to be using them as much. They're still driving you business because you can't totally close the faucet a lot of times. But
there is a trick with that, and this is back on the kind of countering the restrictive point, or Peter saying they aren't restrictive. What happens when you start doing that? If you start limiting their access to inventory, let's say you have a high demand property that people love, they look at it and go, hey, you aren't giving us any inventory when
right,
there's demand where we can sell a whole lot, only when you need it. You aren't a good partner. One of our factors, now maybe it's not the prime factor, right? The prime factor is probably, wow, that's a great quality hotel. Look at that price. That's representing value. People are going to want that. They will move that to the top of the sort order. But if you're a crappy partner, if you pay them zero, they would probably say, can we transact with them? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we can just substitute comparable properties.
well, they've never done anything like graying things out or anything like that.
Well,
so I don't know what
the
you're
grain
talking
thing,
about, Robert.
that grain thing was a really stupid experiment that they should have done very quietly on some A/B testing and realized really quick it didn't work. I mean, it was a really stupid thing just from a business practice, and I have no idea who approved that or who did it because it was just, it was barely worth testing because you could probably assume what the answers were because you go, people want that. Why would you give them a shittier experience, right? That's completely opposite to what they try to do, right? So yeah, that was just dumb.
The fourth point that he puts out, which is the one that's the hardest to even fathom why he would even say this, is OTAs are expensive and don't deliver value. He says is totally false. Actually, it's totally freaking true.
Well, no, they're expensive. The don't deliver value, I would argue, you've got to look at in terms of what they're charging and what they're producing.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I
mean,
the value. Oh yes, no. To be fair, take the value portion out of it. They do provide value.
Yeah,
but the expensive part is the part that catches me.
It's the
they
economics.
are expensive.
It's the economics, right? And okay, let me play devil's advocate for a moment. Not that I'm completely siding with Peter, but there's no risk. You don't have to prepay and come up with a marketing and do all sorts of stuff and put that money out there where it may not materialize. This is a safer bet, but it's the whole risk reward. If you want lower risk, I mean, if you're investing in stocks, you want lower risk, you are not going to necessarily get this massive return off of it. It's just how it works, right? So yeah, for lower risk, they're saying it's going to cost you more, folks.
Yeah, but I mean, in some cases, there are still properties, and it's coming down, but there are properties that are paying 25% of the rate, and one, they shouldn't be. They should go and negotiate with the market managers and get that down.
Right.
But two, 25% is a quarter of the entire cost of the stay, when really all Expedia is doing, I mean, their expense in terms of infrastructure is spread out across all transactions. So their real only expense is in marketing, and where that marketing is getting spent is hijacking intent that already exists. They're putting ads on TripAdvisor on the brand's page. They're harvesting intent that already exists, which is frustrating. Because would that person have booked? Maybe not, but there's a good chance, right? So I just think that the price is falsified because of their practice of bidding on the brand, which
and the bottom line is they could care less if they book your hotel, right? They just want to transact a booking and get a return.
They don't care if they book your destination. There's not one destination that can say, because Expedia sells inventory here, we get more people come to stay here. There's not one. They're not interested, right? They force themselves in as a intermediary that at one point wasn't necessary, but probably is today, because a lot of people struggle to fill up their rooms because there's more inventory available. And
let's just try to make a microcosm comparison to that, like Groupon. Groupon, the initial concept was to make your product aware to people that may not have made it under consideration by offering this insane discount in the hopes that you would then retain them to come back. What came out of that model? Nobody came back. They just turned into Grouponers. They just kept looking for the next deal, the next deal, the next deal. Yep. They weren't worried about coming back to you paying a price twice as much as what they paid to first come to the door. It's the coupon effect. Same too with Expedia. When you add that, when you're using them properly, you're giving them lower rated business because you need to incentivize demand, okay, or steal demand from somebody else in your current market. And you're paying them their commission percentage, which even at the lowest percentage commission payment that you pay them, it's higher than your EBITDA line. If your net profit isn't at least 15%, you're still costing yourself money when you have to pay their commission. You're there's less money coming. There's nothing going to the very bottom line. You're just existing. And even in some ways losing it depending upon the commission percentage. So you're at that point with it, and if you're not retaining that guest to return because of, okay, I paid for a first-time guest, and you're not bringing them back a second time on your own or direct channel, all you're doing is feeding your own demise. Eventually, you're going to put a for sale sign up because you're making less money at the top that doesn't make it to the bottom. Because
Well, the EBITDA,
Yep.
that EBITDA analysis though assumes that you were going to get that booking, that there was intent to book your property.
Well,
So
you need cash.
part of that
cash flow
is
creates
weighed
fear,
by.
but the idea of it is
Part
that
of that is you will get incremental business from these guys that you wouldn't
For sure.
either
Yes,
from
absolutely.
competitors, that destination,
But
or
that
something
shouldn't be
else,
50%
But
of your revenue, which it is for a lot of,
Right.
especially inner city properties. We
Right.
always tell our clients at the beginning, wherever they start, our goal is to get you around 10% reliance on OTAs, because we feel like that's a sweet spot where you're farming new people. And always do the analysis. Always go back and analyze the people each year, the people you got from OTAs, had they ever stayed with you before? And then future, did you get them to book again? The people that booked on OTAs last year, did you get them to book again this year, direct or OTAs? You should always be looking at that and trying to move the needle, because if you do a good job, OTAs are great at finding people you would not have found and then turning them into long-term loyal guests. But you've got to have everyone engaged in that.
balancing act.
It is.
And it's a balancing
And it
act
takes
of
hard
not
work,
just
right? You
to-
can't just switch it on and check a box and say it's done. You've got to work hard. You've got to train your staff. You've got to have processes in place to nurture that relationship and build that direct book.
and work with the market managers so they understand what you're doing and
Yep.
going, look, if you can reduce these things, the conversations I find with the market managers about here's the business, here are the economics.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you guys want this and do this, and there may be other competitors who are paying you
Mm-hmm.
much more richly than me, but I can't afford to do that because I'm putting my money into staff or experience or creating all these sorts of things. So here's my problem. I'm not trying to rip you off, but we need a mutually beneficial
Here-
arrangement here. And if that doesn't work, and especially if you have a good, big, attractive property, you got to go, guys, you're going to get filtered out because your numbers don't work for me. They may work for you. Godspeed. Go channel all your business to someone else who's going to provide shitty experience.
Well, here's another ghost. Here's another
Right?
ghost effect of what OTAs are doing to us as well, is dummy reservations and hard washes that don't happen. And so you artificially have inventory that you don't think you have to sell. And then all of a sudden you wash out your OTA bookings and you find out that they're on dummy credit cards, they're on dummy things, so you got to hard count.
Well, that's not the OTA doing that, though.
That's not the OTA doing it, but it's a ghost
OTA
effect of OTA bookings that's happening. There's a high
That is a
cancellation
guest
percentage.
behavior. I would argue that is the hotels who have created a lot of that phenomenon. Not necessarily the dummy credit
Maybe, but I
I'm
don't
not
think
saying
OTAs
there's
help
no
the
clean hands on
situation,
all
right?
of this.
Yeah, and I mean, just look at the cancellations from OTA bookings
Yes.
versus direct
Oh, yeah.
bookings. It's completely out of whack. So we know it's a different
Right.
type of demographic, and that going back to his second point about they're not restrictive, they certainly are, because they force you
Oh, yeah.
to do things that you wouldn't want to do, like with their cancellation policies. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, and with the cancellation, and again, this has been going on for decades. It used to be that, oh, they've got a block of rooms, they've got all the risk, right? The
Sure.
true merchant model wholesaler thing.
Yeah.
And that was fine. And you could change names. It
Sure.
didn't matter.
Yeah,
Those were
I don't
their
care. The
rooms,
rooms
right?
are sold. The rooms are sold. I don't care.
Yeah, and they could sell it at any price,
Yep.
right? Because they go, hey, they paid $150, $200 for the room.
Yep.
They're winding up with a bunch of inventory going, sell it for $50 because we need a little bit of,
Right.
zero doesn't work for us, right? That wasn't good either. That's a bad situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, you wind up with a lot of these things, but I guilty. I do that a lot. I have reservations that I will make, and I'll go into booking.com because it's 9 months out. I know that I have to be out there, and I'll go, well, that's good enough. And I'm happy to stay there, right?
Mhm.
Whatever property that is. and then I'll just kind of look around starting maybe a month out or something like that. And again, my joke is all I need is one stupid revenue manager and I'm happy. And boy, somebody always steps up.
Yep.
And it does. And you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's a 4-star hotel. It's the same price as the 2.5-star hotel that I was completely satisfied with.
Yep.
Right. And it wasn't like a prepay and save, lock in the savings now because
Yep.
the rates are only going to go up. The airline model, right? Because the airlines control the nonstop origins and destinations, right? They've got a big advantage. So it doesn't work that way. So I'm getting incentives. I mean, these businesses is all about incentives, right? So my incentive is to wait because I will save money. It's just like I
So-
use Hopper on airfares, which must drive the airlines crazy because it says, do not book, do not book,
Yep.
do not
Well,
book.
I think Tim would
And
be
then
proud
goes,
of us.
yeah, now do it, right?
I think Tim would be proud of us. We abused the article to his liking, I bet.
Well, Tim,
speaking
okay,
speaking of
Tim,
incentives,
we believe this is Tim's, basically his whole consulting model that he uses for his clients, I believe, which
so
is why
Robert-
he was upset that Peter
Robert,
had revealed.
are
the
you
secret.
willing to confess that you are a Cobalt member? Are you a secret Cobalt member for Marriott?
Oh, all these groups.
Tell us
have
now.
the-
Tell us now. Yeah.
No, I am not.
I'm
think
not
I
at
don't-
liberty to divulge, right?
I don't believe I
Mr.
really
Marriott,
have
did Mr.
silver-
Marriott
silver
give you that
status,
special
but,
card and a special
yeah.
handshake?
Yeah, I'm hoping to earn silver status through some participation at Marriott this year. I think.
Hey, that
My
brings up.
big
I
goal.
mean, I'll pop up the Cobalt article so people understand why I'm referring to it. But the other is, have you seen this Founders card running around? It's a membership card, and it offers elite status in a variety of different platforms automatically part. So basically,
Yeah.
it's like a meta search of over an OTA or a mega, because it's taking all these memberships and giving you elite status within them by buying the membership with them.
What's the monthly or what's the annual?
much
The
It
annual
costs-
is $395. Actually, it's $695 normally or something. They have a thing going on $395. It gives you all the car deal, the Hertz, the Avises, the Enterprises, all the major hotels, Marriott's,
Right.
Hilton's, Hyatt's. All of them give you either gold or silver or platinum. They're varying
Yeah.
degrees of membership value to all of them.
Right.
And you pay
Yeah.
one membership to get all these things, and you get now elite status in all these other memberships.
Hmm.
It's like an aggregate.
Whee!
I think there's a market for that. I don't think I'm the
There's a
target
market for
audience,
it.
but there is a market.
Yeah,
you
I'm
know?
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's they're taking on the platinum card, right? Yeah, which
In a way, they are. Yeah.
it's okay. A lot of those benefits, though, for gold status and things like that at some of these hotels just isn't much. The most tangible thing is you're probably going to get a room upgrade, maybe, but
Yeah.
probably not. I mean, there's not a lot
Yeah.
there.
And it's a thin target, right? Because if you travel a lot, you probably are going to gain those elite statuses organically.
Yeah.
And if you don't
Well-
travel a lot, then the value's not there to spend that kind of
Yeah,
money to
well,
get it, right? So there's a happy, baby bear's porridge in the middle, that Goldilocks zone between
Yeah.
the two, where it makes sense.
Well, see, like for me, being in Dallas for Robert, it makes it easy. American Airlines, you can get your status if you do travel enough, because basically, that other than Southwest, that's the game in town. But for me,
Well, yeah,
in
but
Southwest,
that's the game of the airlines. As I
Right.
said before,
what I'm
they
saying is, like,
control
for
the
me,
origin
when I
destinations of their
travel,
hub.
when I travel, I have to keep this, using different platforms because it depends on the flight and the destination. So I never really get to that. Because obviously the reward systems are based on the just beyond average usage level.
Yeah. I'm the
love
same
it.
way. I
You know?
depending on where I'm going, it's either American or Delta going
Yeah.
through Charlotte or Atlanta from Myrtle Beach. So I'm like halfway on both.
Yeah.
Both
Right.
So I never would hit it. But by the same token, I don't mind the fact if I had an elite status I could walk on. My whole thing about getting on a plane is just wherever my suitcase is going to go. I know I got a seat. I just want to make sure I got a spot for my freaking suitcase,
Well, yeah, but the bottom line is if you're in Houston, you're really going to have trouble. I mean, you could, if you live in southern Houston, you can go out on Southwest out of Hobby, sort of
Right.
thing, right? But, not as conveniently located as Love Field for Dallas. If you're in Salt Lake, you're pretty much on Delta.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just,
And then that's
if
the
you're in
thing. And that's why
Minneapolis,
I think these
you're
kind of
pretty
cards
much
are
on
kind of
Delta.
interesting because it does give you, and the same thing with travel, where I stay for hotels, it's a matter of not being brand loyal. I'm very brand apathetic, actually. It's
Right.
so I never really say I'm going to make sure I try to stay at these particular brands so I get my status, because the earliest status is weak at best. Here's your free bottle of water, Mr. Ray. Thank you so much. You're still going to get the room by the ice machine. You know, there's no, and that's where I looked at this Cobalt thing, and then I started
Well,
looking at
for
all
the top guys, all of them have it. I mean,
yeah,
every
I'm looking at
airline. It's a
you're just
splinter group.
you're really just doing nothing more than reamplification of somebody that's already attained that level. To your point, Stuart, is like, if I'm already doing that with you at that level for that consumption,
Oh,
this is just a great attaboy for somebody
well,
that's way
no. At that, people will swing. American, when they started executive platinum, because platinum was big, right? Especially in Dallas. I mean, there were
oh
a
yeah.
lot of people. They brought in executive platinum. I believe their original plan was to have 100,000 members, and what they didn't count on was that people started just going all in for it
Mm-hmm.
because they could. They were
Mhm.
capturing a lot of their business, but all of a sudden, people started taking the burn a trip at the end of the year to get the stuff. They started their first year like 300,000 people. It was like, oh crap, that's not good.
I think I
We
told
can't
you this.
service those guys,
I think I
right?
told you this story. So when I first got my gold status with American Airlines, I thought it was big stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm on zone 4, baby. And I'm like, I was flying to
They
Chicago. I
didn't
remember
have
this. It was my first flight where my phone looked different. It had the black behind it, so I was at elite status, and it said gold, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get on the plane, man. I'm going to be right there first. So the flight to Chicago turns out it's quite a heavy used business flight. I was literally, and I mean I'm not exaggerating in any sense.
75
I was the literally last person on the plane.
Nice.
Everybody,
Oh, yeah.
to your point, was executive platinum.
You bet.
Literally, I was the last call. There was nobody that wasn't of status. There was no non-status flyers. It was,
Right.
it was
Because
the
for
787.
airlines,
When the
for
787,
airlines,
the Dreamliners and stuff. That's how prominent this route was. They put their first 787 on that lane. And I'm sitting there going, wow, that's humbling. That reminds you that you don't really want for much.
right? No,
Yeah.
They don't have to. The origins destinations have been divvied up, and Delta. The unspoken understanding is, American goes, hey Delta, don't mess with Dallas,
Yeah.
and Delta goes, hey, if you don't mess with Atlanta, we're good.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, they
And
do this next. So anyway, the Cobalt thing for those who
but I was gonna say though, on all of those things for those programs, it is nothing about loyalty. It is conversion of corporate travel spend to personal leisure travel benefit. That
Mhm.
is the gamification. That is the whole thing. So these companies, when they go out and they just go, yeah, where are you going to book? Well, the company's paying. I
Yep.
don't really care. Now, if it's a really crappy flight with 2 connections, they aren't. Some people might like. Who knows why they're trying to get the points, right? I mean, there may be a very small fringe case, but the rest are just like, yeah, I'll pay $420 because that's fine, and maybe they could get there. Like if you're in Dallas, maybe you could get it for $290 or whatever
Yeah.
on Southwest. But yeah, I'll just go into that. The company's paying for it. Who cares? And let's go get the status and roll.
So this Cobalt status that Marriott's offering, and in the article, for those who want to look at it, there is everybody has it. To Robert's point, this is by CEO District. Mr. Marriott's the only one that can sign off on this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not even if you own a hotel. If you own a bunch of hotels, doesn't mean you get Cobalt status. So this is definitely a political power play of them. You coming in and getting knighted with the magical Marriott sword if you get one of these things. Because you're of a different caliber of relationship with the mothership, I guess.
I don't think the Attorney General of Washington D.C. has Cobalt status, and maybe that's why they're picking.
That's right.
We found the underlying.
But since we're in that vein of conversation, I went over and dropped this.
Look at what you get on here. What you get on here, though, is not that great. Okay, upgrade to the best available rooms, including suites. I think that's probably. What are the other?
Oh, to me, I think it's useless. I mean, it's only political. Everything about these things are useless.
Titanium and Ambassador, you're already in there. Platinum might not give you upgrades to suites anymore.
This is just a bragging right. This is a bragging right. The value proposition is garbage. I mean,
and it's you can do some celebrities, you can certainly do some
it's
politicians.
the same thing that happened
Um,
with the black cards. Remember when the black cards came out that you could drop it
Mhm.
and they tinged because they were metal or titanium. You drop it down because you get to show off to all your friends that you have one. Yeah, because I had them all the time, so I used them all. I mean, but, just because.
yeah,
Mine
yeah,
was
but
more like,
that's well, and you look at like American Express Platinum, yeah, you can get metal card. I mean, now their gold cards are metal too, right? So they've gone
yeah.
to metal
But
for a lot of them.
but the whole
But
it does nothing more than status of being able to say that you are. It has no value proposition because you're already
yeah.
at that level of attainment. You already are, spending that kind of money. So it doesn't mean
Well,
anything.
there's an extra level of recognition, and that extra level is, Bill Marriott picked you,
Yeah,
right? And at that level, my argument is, especially at the top of the market, it's funny. Everybody's kind of the same, and this happened way back. We had this Indian Princess group, and we had some relatively high net worth individuals in it, right? We had prominent cardiologists, real estate people, things like that. They want to go to Rustler's Lodge in Park City, Utah, right? And it's times 700, $800 a night. But the guy who spent 780 instead of 820, he's a genius, right? Versus the 820 guys are more, and it doesn't matter if they had charged 900, they both would have gone, right?
Yeah.
It made the dollar amount wasn't that. It was all about, did
I
I get a better
empathize.
deal?
I
Did
empathize
I
with
get
the
did I
GMs.
get better? Did I get better recognition? Or
Mhm.
I'm part of a club that you're not part of.
Right. That's all. I empathize with the general managers that have one of these yahoos showing up. Like,
Yeah,
oh, geez, in Italy, because
yeah.
hell hath no fury. Like somebody thinks that they own the place,
Mhm.
Well,
and
and
they
you
probably
better
walk
on
into every
something
door
like
thinking they
this.
own the place.
On something like this, if it's a direct invitation from the CEO,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
better, by God, produce, because
Yeah.
they're going to go, they've got a direct link and you're going to find out
yeah.
about it. So,
They have they have a direct line to God. Yeah, it's not
yeah,
a good
yeah.
thing.
And so I'm sure you go
Uh,
out, look at the way we opened the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, which is a really, really important property for Four Seasons back then. We went out and we took every CEO and every chairman of a Fortune, um, I think it was Fortune 100 company. And we invited them. Now this was pre Sarbanes-Oxley, okay? So big caveat. Invited them and their spouse or partner or whoever they'd like to take. Come out. We will fly you round trip, first class from wherever you are. Come in, experience the hotel for a weekend. What do you want to do? Dining's on us. Just do it. Tell us how you liked it, right? We're going to have a conversation with you and we'll send you back. It was genius, right? That made the hotel. They all loved it. It cost a fortune, but let me
Mhm.
tell you, all of a sudden those guys went, they told their assistants, and it was all set up and handled through their assistants anyway, which was part of the
right.
plan. We were
Yeah.
not sending these to home addresses, right?
No.
This was like, we're doing this. It's recognition of what they do. We love you. This is a great new hotel. It's designed for them and would love their input, right? We're doing market research. And we love you anyway, because maybe if they had stayed at Four Seasons, there was messaging on that. And if they hadn't, there was messaging on that. It was brilliant. And boy,
Yeah.
nailed
I
that
threw up
property.
I threw up
And
the
the
other
rest of the group.
article you put in there, Robert. The best hotel reward programs listed through. They listed Bonvoy. I thought they listed Bonvoy above Wyndham because of the size of it, but I guess
Yeah,
it's
the
actually
number of properties, right?
Yeah.
In terms of brands. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Wyndham has always been pretty much that strong. Starwood obviously when it existed, but Wyndham has always been a strong presence, and I just think that maybe
Well,
because of
look at the difference in the score, 4.78 to 4.77. That
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's close, actually. Yeah.
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 And then
Where
I
was
would say
Hilton on the
that's not a
list?
statistically
Where was Hilton
significant
Honors
difference.
on the list?
Fourth down. Hold on,
Um,
I'll pop it real quick.
No, they were
They
pretty
weren't
far
top
down.
5.
They were
right?
10th. They were
Oh yeah, no,
10th.
they did. They were down. Yeah. Honors 10. They were 10. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's a slap in
above
the face,
stats.
considering how much they've invested in rebranding that, revamping it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Well, I
that
think they
was an
diluted their
eye-opener.
messaging by that as well. If you think, putting the
Mm-hmm.
two together as much as they had, Best Western, got to give them kudos, man. Best Western's really since they've done the rebranding, since they've done the retooling, They've just done nothing but improve themselves on all counts as they go
Let me
forward.
tell you, I was really skeptical on the rebranding of keeping everything, just the Best Western Premier. Very
Yeah.
minor variations on the name. I was looking at that going, I don't know, but hey, Dorsey
Hey,
Dowling
Valen's
and
here.
David
Hold
Long
on.
are
He's doing great.
smarter people than me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Valen popped in, and I just gave her permission to join us. Hopefully, she
Sweet.
I didn't miss it too long ago.
We'll actually have someone intelligent on the show for once. That's good.
God, right? Please.
Valen, please come on. Please talk to us.
I just saw her raised hand, so I hit it. So hopefully she got the pop back to it.
Mhm.
And if there's any issues, I'm going to check my email while we do this. I can always send over Ed's link or something like that, Valen. If you're listening, just let me know.
Or maybe I can go, Valen, come on the show, or I'll tell that story about Focusrite in 2008.
That's funny. Hey, I gotta leave in about 15 minutes. Can we do Star Wars? Can we do the Star Wars one real quick?
Oh,
yeah, we can do the Star Wars one.
Which hit on the bait.
I wore my Star Wars shirt just for that. I didn't really.
Yeah.
I read it afterwards, but it's funny because I'm a shareholder in Disney. I think anyone should be because they just do phenomenal performance over the last several years, and will continue to do so. But the media is really kind of missing the point, I think, on this. There's been a lot of mainstream media picking up on the fact that they didn't hit the numbers at Disneyland in California since they opened the new park. But there's a lot of mitigating factors here, and I think the biggest one, and what people don't, they think it's going to carry over to Orlando, which is crazy because if you look at the demographics in California, there's a lot more locals sustain that one than in Florida, right? So Disney flat out made mistakes with this launch. One, they didn't have the new main ride, the Rise of the Resistance, up and running at launch. So a lot of people are going to wait and say, "Oh, let me wait until the main ride's up before I go." But two, they restricted all the season ticket holders, and they told everyone, "You might not want to come yet because it's going to be really crowded." And they didn't buy enough merchandise, and they sold out of all the cool stuff in all the stores that they wanted, like the $200 lightsabers and this crazy stuff that everyone's like, "Oh, that scared people away because it was going to be too expensive to take a family of 4." Well, guess what? They sold out of all of that stuff. So it wasn't like people were not wanting it. So a lot of missteps from Disney. But I think they've learned from it, and I think when they open Orlando, man, it's going to be a whole different ball game. That's where families travel, and it's going to go bananas, especially once Rise of the Resistance launches. So go buy Disney stock right now because it took a little hit because of the earnings.
Stuart's trying to arbitrate being
no, I agree with it, but I do believe from a stumbling point of view, to your point that even the best in the industry, which Disney is, can still make missteps as to what they interpret as to being what they should do. I think also one thing that, sir, that you didn't mention that I thought was also a consideration is, unlike other theme parks, the loyalty base associated with the theme of this park is profound. Just like a Star Trek, you have Trekkies and you have the people from Star Wars. And if you just open the gates and say, we're going to treat this park like anybody else, all employees can go in with a discount, their friends can get their discounts, it's a free-for-all. And you get what would have been the headlines: massive lines. What a terrible experience! I'm never going back. This was crap. I couldn't even get into the rides. Blah blah blah. So yes, they did it wrong by restricting some of those components, but they also did it in some ways, I think, right by not saying that we're just going to ruin the experience. Because the experience is so they want this to be an all-encompassing, a totally encased environment, unlike a theme park where you know where you are and you have rides and you have things and this is cute. This was supposed to be a complete ecosystem that you felt like you were someplace completely different in all aspects, everywhere. Yeah. And if you're standing in 3-hour lines, you can't get into any of the shops. Half the shelves don't have the stuff on it. That you can't get anything to eat. Then you're just going to go back going, this blows, man. And that's what the mess would have gone out, So I think in some ways,
I agree. And I think what frustrates me most about this narrative is that everyone's like, "Oh, it's a disaster. This was a bad idea." And there's echoes of what happened when Solo, A Star Wars Story, the movie, came out and didn't do as well as the main sagas. stories, everyone's like, "Oh, there's Star Wars fatigue. Maybe the brand isn't as strong," and that's just
Jump the shark. Yeah.
it's total BS. That's not. It's got nothing to do with the Star Wars brand as to why this hasn't been successful. And again, you're going to see that the difference when Orlando opens up, and once the Rise of the Resistance rides are open, people are just going to go there in droves for the next decade, and it's going to make Disney a ton of money.
Just like, and to make the comparison to Star Trek too, is that they're having to create different timelines now. They have to create different canon to the things that people have endeared themselves to. And Star Wars is no different. I mean, all the comic series and everything else, they're creating new canon, and the theme parks have to absorb that into the process, because you have people that took Star Wars from the 1970s when it first came out to people that are just now being introduced to it, that have the whole new idea that Kylo Ren is as bad as Darth Vader was. You know, you have all these different genres of interest in this park, and the park has to satisfy everybody that walks in the door. And I don't think 3-hour lines. I don't think rides that aren't operating or are available. I don't think shelves that are empty to buy stuff from, or to have food that they can't eat or something is going to be of any benefit. They're going to have to regulate that demand. I think it was cocky of them to say they stopped marketing. That I did think they did wrong. I mean, it sounded really cool that they thought that they could. I remember when we hit it on the show, but in hindsight, it's like, that's pretty damn cocky,
Disney's a pretty smart organization. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to make sure the stuff was open, and they got the kinks worked out.
Yeah, they may have. So
before the last film and things like. Who knows, right?
Yeah, they could be controlling this narrative, right? Their PR is pretty strong. They could be controlling the narrative now to make people say, maybe I should go now because it's a little quieter, right? Leading up to the ninth movie. So, I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Right? I put myself in the top 5% of Star Wars fans in terms of nerdery, but I haven't been yet. I mean, I was tempted to go, but I haven't, because I'm like, it's a lot of money to drop on a family of 4, and I want to wait until the full experience is rolled out. I want to wait until the hotel is rolled out, till all the rides are rolled out, until they have ironed out the kinks of the flow of traffic and whatnot. So, yeah, it's going to be fine. I hate the fake news that sensationalizes it and says Star Wars is dead.
Well, and I threw in another story. I was at the HTNG Insight conference in Deer Valley earlier this week, and they had Dan Cockrell, who's former, I think, CTO of Disney, and he went through his presentation. Was
great,
awesome.
Yeah,
right? Oh, you've seen
really
it?
Smart. Yeah, I've seen the video of it, and
just the Magic Band story.
Yeah,
and a Magic Band project was $1 billion project, right? In 2013, a 5-year, 2008 to 2013, but. His best thing is, he said Disney had, the way they do things from an IT perspective is, 1, guests have to love it. 2, Disney cast members, the employees, have to love it. And 3 is, it has to effing work. And that was like Bob Iger, and that was it. And so they came up with this whole thing. They had the Magic Bands. It does all this, but then it wound up being, how do you validate this thing, right? And it's like, well, you've got this 16-digit number. You type it in on the site. You go, guests will not love that.
Right.
And they're like, well, yeah, but what are we going to cost them, an extra $1 million? And they're like, no, this is what, check these boxes, damn it. Yeah. If it doesn't do this, that is not our brand. That is not what we do. We're spending $1 billion. What's another, million to make sure this is right?
Yeah. I would encourage anyone that is involved in any kind of project related to technology implementation at your property, go watch this presentation, go read this article, because it is the playbook on how to determine whether or not the technology you're looking at is going to work or not. Again, make sure your employees, in their terms, the cast members, love it. Make sure the guests love it, and make sure it works, which means it doesn't create new friction, that it removes friction and improves the guest experience. If you do that with your technology, you're great. Don't just roll out, like a messaging platform like Zingle and just say, check, we've done that. Like, figure out how to implement that in a way that improves everyone's experience, especially the guest, but also your employees. Because if you don't get buy-in from your employees, it's not going to get managed the right way. And they're going to resist it, and they're going to create bottlenecks and friction that doesn't need to exist for the guest.
And let me tell you, he was personally, and they had the top execs run these sessions with the employees. It wasn't like, junior implementation guy who's just reading the script and doesn't really get it. I mean, we're talking face-to-face VP to getting earfuls from people on, hey, here's this, here's that, why aren't you doing that? And then fixing it before it went. And he said he presented 35, 40 sessions. And it was like, that's not.
Hey,
that is
before you get to run through it, I just want to ask you about the Google shutting down its Trip app. What do you think about the direction of that? Because
I think it's a non-story, right? I think one, they've rolled almost all, if not all, of the functionality in the Google web experience on mobile and on desktop. So it's not like the features that they're trying to accomplish don't exist, and they'll get used more, to be candid, within the search engine. But I don't think Google's done trying to create a travel app. I think we'll see within the next 12 months a reimagined version of it that's going to get launched. The problem they had, a lot of apps are going to live or die on the first 6 months of their launch, right? In terms of popularity and whether they're going to be trending, whether people are going to get exposure to them and whatnot. In the Google Trips app, when it first launched, was very anemic. It didn't have a lot of functionality that was actually useful, and still to this day isn't the most useful thing. Like, I played around with it, but there's nothing in there that's like killer in terms of I have to have this feature when I travel. So I think they're doing the right thing, like just kind of quietly turning this thing off, rolling the features into the search where people will use it, and then rethink what they're going to do from an app perspective in the marketplace.
I think they want it to be a natural extension of things you do. You use Maps, you use your calendar, you use your email, you buy through their various stores or whatever the case may be. And you stay within their ecosystem, and then all of a sudden, I think you're going to wind up with something where they're going to, like, their packaging, even on the news site, the packaging sucks. I mean, they totally blew it. They didn't know what they were doing, right?
Yeah, no one's really cracked that nut, at all, the packaging side. And I think because it's so different for so many people about when and what they want to package and how, and the itinerary stuff. No one's, part of one of the other articles is about TripAdvisor, again, not hitting their target numbers. And they've lost the plot because they're doubling down on the wrong thing, not the things that made them successful, but they're doubling down on what a lot of people are talking about is the future, because millennials love experiences, so let's package everything. And that's really not, because
the experiences have to be tailored to what that person wants
individually, right? You don't want to be put in a box, and you don't want to be restricted, and that any kind of itinerary stuff like that creates restriction, and you need to go the opposite way. You need to create freedom and give them options. TripAdvisor needs to get back to the basics. They need to be a place of authority that helps people make a decision, and they're trying to do all kinds of things like inspire travel and get up and down the funnel, and they just need to stay in the middle and do a great job of that.
With the Google thing, I'll say that when it first came out, I had hopes for it in the sense of the fact that it had the offline feature where you could keep your stuff and your details. But then that got duplicated in multiple ways, so you could download maps and so forth. The other feature was you could create an itinerary where you could pick out the highlights you would do and calculate what it would take for you to go between all the different points. And that was good. But then
it's kind of cool, but it's not mainstream. Like, most people aren't as nerdy as you, right? I mean that in a loving way.
I know.
And then to go back to your first point, the offline mode. When are you ever offline today? Really?
Well, that's the thing. Now coverage has gotten, since it first launched. I remember getting off of a plane and not having a SIM card until I bought one or something, and it's a little nerve-wracking that you're not connected and plugged in as much as you normally feel you are. But that's gone now. I don't even bother. Before you had to increase your plan and everything else. Now you just pay to be someplace. It's just as soon as you show up, you pay.
If something goes wrong, though, the hotel's Wi-Fi is out, or you got a bad signal, or they're having, whatever. That's okay. Right, I certainly have it for like TripIt. I use TripIt Pro. their stuff has always been stored, offline, which is great because you can just go in there. You don't have to log on to the Wi-Fi, kind of all those sorts of obstacles.
All right, but you travel a lot, right? How often have you ever had to use it not being online?
I don't care because it always works.
Right, but
So,
my point is, you probably never, right?
No, it probably has never really happened, right?
But
It's
see, I'll
like,
compare it.
like,
I don't know.
no, it really is. And,
Other
but
ones
to your
that you
point,
have to go online.
there's one, and to this day, and you pointed this out, there was a really neat, this goes back way back, like 04, 05 stuff, when all these different extensions you could put into different browsers was kind of the trend thing at the time. And there was this one extension I remember putting in that as you looked at travel pages, you could put it into, you click it on with this little extension, it would pull over the site and what you highlighted as you're looking for things when you're traveling, making your travel plans. Just pull little pieces over, and it would create this little notes of things that you're interested in looking at doing. The cool part of it, what it did, and I've never seen everybody ever duplicate this because somebody swallowed this up and it disappeared, was that it would then go out and look for deals associated with the little snippets you pulled over.
That's smart, yeah.
And they did it graphically, right? And you had and you could do pictures, and you could then
and it was really, really cool because as I'm finding stuff and as I'm doing travel research, I'd snip these things over, and then it would show me, well, these little sites have these special offers for this, and if you need to buy tickets to this or whatever, and it would put the stuff together for you, where you can. It helped you research the next level, which was okay.
It was kind of like the next level. It was like a pre-Pinterest almost thing where you could.
But it's gone. And it's like
with you more utility,
Yeah. And going back to your packaging thing, how cool would it be if that was somehow evolved now that you could do those things, and then all of a sudden somebody, entity or whatever, would then say, here, all the things that you're interested in, if you wrap all these up and these connections with this and this offer goes with this and this discount gets applied because of this and that, here's your package offer.
Hey, guess what? Guess what? That was the Neat Group business model in 2000, and it died in 2003 when we sold it to Sendon.
There you go.
They pivoted. They totally destroyed the business model and the concept.
I got to run. Sorry.
I don't want to drag you too long. You said you had to jump at the bottom of the hour, so
that's
but thank
because.
You
and we'll explain why Stuart has to leave when we cover the rut row. He's a little embarrassed. He's a little embarrassed about somebody talking about what happened.
It happened to him when he
could happen to anybody.
Hey, my opinion on that row is the dude was stupid for not shutting his door properly and locking it. I never sleep in a hotel room without putting the latch over. I just
latch and lock. Yeah.
That's just
unfortunately true. Yep.
All right, boys, I gotta run.
And thank you for letting us squat on your Facebook page today. Hopefully nobody comes bouncing into your office going, what the hell were you thinking?
No one's paying attention to it in the office. It's good.
Good.
Yeah, we are publishing an episode of the podcast. We're recording today, publishing on Monday on the top X, because we haven't defined how many there are yet. There's at least 16, but the top 16 plus triggered emails that you should have implemented for your hotel. So that'll be a good one.
Oh, that's a nice one. Well, yeah, I was about to say, I could say at least 9.
Okay. Well, if you shoot me your list of 9 before 2:30 today, I'll make sure they're all included.
I have actually an example of it on a slide that have at least 6 of them.
That's so weird. I mean, you just don't have one standard email that you use for all purposes?
Well, yes, that is the industry standard is one shotgun, throw everything in it. Let's hit it and see if something sticks on a wall email.
And you really want to make sure when you merge these things in, you have kind of the field value there instead of the guest name. That's another.
That's right. Yeah, dear first name. Exactly.
Dear first name. Yep. Dear valued guest. Hey, by the way, just to throw into the mix of your conversations here with it, are you guys going to talk about segmenting out your pre-arrivals based on channel of acquisition?
We are going to touch on that actually. Yeah, a lot of the triggers are going to be we're going to fly in, like whether it's direct, whether it's OTA or third-party bookings, and for sure.
Excellent. All right.
Be sure to talk about the DNA. You've cross-referenced all the
the retinal scans, the fingerprints. Yep.
I would be very curious what you guys come up with on the post-stay stuff. That's the part that I always have question marks on, is how frequent and what frequency and what channel optimizations come from that. So I'm looking forward to the podcast. And for people who want to hear your podcast, where do they go?
Oh, yeah, fueltravel.com/podcast or wherever you can find great podcasts. We will show up for any kind of hotel marketing related keyword. So,
excellent. All right. Sure, thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys. See ya. Have a good one.
All right.
Thank you.
And Fuel Travel does have the most amazing AI platform. Now that they've hacked the camera to do the facial recognition to really identify the guest when just actually, I think the camera's on all the time, so they can,
Yeah, but once they get a hold
and
of
the
your
mic.
camera, boy, it's
Yeah,
there.
I
Yeah.
mean that full immersion to understanding the guest's total lifestyle at work, at home.
Well,
It's really out, and the mobile one, right? It's almost they're really starting to get 18 hours of quality understanding of the customer experience.
what's the joke that they have around Fuel Travel? The husband and wife are sitting around saying, "Isn't it funny how if people think that these things listen to us all the time? He laughed, she laughed, Google laughed, Alexa laughed, Fuel Travel laughed. You know."
Exactly. Actually, on that topic, I attended, and I'm not going to say who the participants are. I normally would, but in this case, I won't. I have no financial relationship interest. It was a weird and distressing project. It was a major marketing group. It was not Fuel Travel, and they went through kind of this whole identifying guests and working with them, thing like that. And basically the case that they provided. I mean, a lot of people would do a persona or things like that, and they said, "Oh, here's Libby," right? And they go through it, and they said she wants to do a girls' weekend away, and they knew all this stuff, and it's like, wait a second, how do you know this? They never covered any of that, and you're just sitting there going, hang on, you have all this stuff and they're talking about, oh, and you tie into third-party databases and you do this and you can find, it's like, whoa, have you heard of GDPR? Have you heard about CCP and stuff like that? And they did cover it. They go, oh yeah, but it's fine as long as you just have this for being that they could opt out or get their information. It's like, whoa, wait a second, you were taking information from a transactional sale and now using this, forever for marketing purposes. That's not really it. You've completely blown this whole thing, and the whole thing was like, oh my God, how can they be telling people to do this stuff? This is horrible, right? It was like way over the creepy line with no detail and just this completely kind of immersive. I don't know. It was disconcerting at best. So anyway, but yeah,
So
be
what?
careful who you tie your wagon to on some of these cases. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, we've known being in the industry and doing the marketing that we do that if you take enough triangulation of data from sources, just
yeah.
whatever sources, your call trackings, your PMS systems, your marketing programs, and if you take enough applied data science to them, you can isolate people to individuals rather than collective interest of demographics. And you can now know that Lauren is this cell phone, and Lauren is this email, and Lauren is this user ID, and that Lauren is this traffic.
Lauren,
and so
is
when
that
Lauren gets to your
IMEI?
website,
That's right.
yeah, yeah, that's Lauren doing this on the website, and you can go over and identify that, and that's where you use it for bad, because that's not the intent of this. I agree to signing up for personalization, but the ambiguity of how much personalization is what's being pushed over the line. It turns into, oh, we're going to bring this to a finite.
My paper for Focusrite isn't out yet, but I look at stage one as the customization based on explicit signals. 2 adults, 2 children. Hey, let's start showing these guys some family related stuff, right?
Right.
Second one is kind of the inference, things based on behaviors, but based on not just their behavior, but how everybody else behaved, right? Here's all the experiences of people who've done this. There's a higher probability that they're going to be satisfied purchasers and happy if they do X. So that's great. You start programming the things in that will give them a better navigation and better outcomes and shortcuts that get them where they need to. Fantastic. But then the personalization is the third step, which is really the opting into that PII, right? Of saying, you can use my stuff for this. But it was weird in this particular webinar, all the examples they were given, like, whoa, they did not opt in for that sort of thing, because they're like, oh yeah, well, if they had a great time at this hotel, now you're going to go talk about this other hotel somewhere else, for especially in the model, something that involves other people. And as
Hmm.
far as I know, with these things like where it's the girlfriend's, weekend away, that's not a unilateral decision by one person who happened to stay at one resort and did yoga in the spa, in California, and now they're going to Austin, Texas, and you've just assumed this, and they are peppering them with all this stuff, and it's like, wait, that's all post booking. You
Hmm.
were talking about intent over here. It was really I don't know. I don't know. I got the impression like either of these guys don't know what they're talking about, or they're giving their guests really bad advice, or maybe they're really good at this stuff and this was a really exceptionally bad presentation of that material. But boy, it was concerning the way
Hmm.
they were discussing this stuff. But anyway.
So, I mean, we kind of jumped over, and I don't know if it's all that important to go back to, but just out of one of the points, one of the things in brand and product that Marriott is going into the luxury all-inclusive resort program.
Yeah,
The
that
idea
was
of this is, I mean, of course, no stone unturned for them. I mean, I imagine
right.
pretty soon they're going to start announcing they're getting into the hostel business as well. But the idea of this, they have, as they pointed out, a couple of products, not because of intent, but by default, a couple of Westons that have been all inclusive, but that hasn't been a
Right.
driving force for them. But they're going all in on these in Mexico and Dominican Republic.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Where the Spanish chains have gone in there.
yeah.
And you look at Hyatt and Hilton are already in there. But how did they do it? Well, they did it with Playa Resorts. And the Playa
Hmm.
Resorts guys are basically run by people who used to run Sandals. They used to run AM Resort. They've got really, really deep, all-inclusive background. Um, and it's really But this one is really interesting to me because I think it really shouts Marriott doesn't want to add new brands because the logical thing would be, I mean, all-inclusive property is very different,
Yes.
very, very different from a regular European plan property. But they aren't doing new names. So they're going to have Ritz-Carlton all-inclusives, Luxury Collection all-inclusives, Marriott's, Westin's, W's, Autographs, and Deltas. And you look at that and go, wow. And Marriott has failed miserably in Mexico in the past, with just kind of adding some, oh, well, you can get some buffet food and beverage options and things like, and we're going to give you a wristband and you can go down and just get food. That's not how these all-inclusives run. These things run like cruise ships, right? It
Yeah.
is a whole programming experience. The really smart ones like the Ryus and the Iberostars, particularly Ryu, they run those full, right? Just like a cruise ship, and they've got everything going, and people have a great time, right? And it's a
And I
terrific
mean,
product.
there's a lot of, yeah. I've
This
had the
is
pleasure of
this
talking to some
is
people that have been in the space, and it's a matter about timing, availabilities of certain services at certain times for certain categories and tiers of people that have bought
yeah,
certain things, the location that they place people in comparison to the amenities, the types of rooms that are built or are provided for that have certain variations to what the people's packages were, because it's just not one fits all. It's
yeah.
several variations of things for people to enjoy. But the real mixed magic of that is that nobody feels that they have been left out, but rather incentivized to come back and buy the next level availability because they see the value proposition in from what they originally bought. So
Yeah.
it's almost like a cultured relationship, a workflow relationship with these people that you incubate their interest because they may come in thinking, well, let's try this thing, but I ain't going to go crazy with it. We'll buy the level package that gets us there because hey, all inclusive. I'll
Yeah.
drink my
But
ticket.
that doesn't work operationally for these all-inclusives. You've
No.
got to be all in for it because otherwise it doesn't work. You can't
Yeah.
have, and a lot of these guys, if you look at Excellence Resorts, does a tremendous job. You look at what Charisma's done with some of their brands like Eldorado and those sorts of things. They do amazing high quality stuff. I mean, they satisfy the needs of the market. Or from a development perspective, I mean, Barostar does this. Barcelo, I think, had the best example. Barcelo has probably a 2,500 room property in Riviera Maya in Mexico and Quintana Roo, just south of Cancun, and they started off with one hotel, and it had the all in. It's like 500 rooms or something like that, big place. but they had the whoops, hang on, sorry, I forgot to turn this off. They they wound up with the buffets and things like that were outdoors, right? And it's kind of hot and sweaty and things like that, but that's okay. They programmed the sort of thing, and they had a couple of them. They were separated kind of on different ends of the building. Well, then they do another one, another 500 room resort, and you could see what they learned because all of a sudden, oh, they've got that the buffets are air conditioned and they're centralized to this and they're using a common kitchen. It's really, really efficient, right? Much more efficient than the first one. Then they did an adults only, like all inclusive things where, no kids on that, not the pool, a little bit more quiet and private. And even though you have this giant beach, which is spectacular, you've got all the water sports, things like slightly different experiences. And you kind of went through it and went, these guys are really smart, right? They really figured this stuff out. Another building, amazing kids club, really cool pools, activity pools, and things like that. But isolated from the adults one, and you kind of go, that's a really complicated resort to operate. But wow, these guys learned, they learned what their guests want. They figured it out and did it. I don't know. The autograph collection ones make all the sense in the world because you can get independent developers and you go, oh,
Right.
Palladium wants to go, and I'm just making this up. Palladium wants to go, become big with Marriott. That's great. That would make probably a lot of sense. But boy, I don't know. And people who wander into a Westin and it's an all-inclusive and they're used to a regular Westin experience and vice versa, that gets really crazy. So I don't know. But they said
Well,
they have a
a lot of the all
240, a
inclusive.
240, a 400, a 300, and a 500, all opening in Riviera Nayarit, which is in basically Puerto Vallarta area. So yeah, kind of a West Coast, Pacific Coast region, great destination. But that is probably one complex where that's a developer who's doing several properties under
Mhm.
this. I've got to think because that's generally how those get built. But it'll be interesting to see what they do here. And Hyatt kind of blew it with Zalara, and unfortunately, I can't even remember the other name where they had both of them were Z's. One was adults only, the other was families, and they've really clouded that relationship up. And it's I don't know. All these major North American chains are not good at this, or they have not been good at this. It's the Spanish chains, the specialists, and the Jamaican, the sandals guys, or
Mhm.
basically the Jamaican guys who've really kind of gotten it down. And unfortunately, they've tried looking at Hawaii. The numbers don't work. The numbers work in Mexico and Dominican Republic because of wage rates. That's
Mhm.
basically, and that's the bottom line. They ran into some problems in Jamaica with it, but Jamaica was more like quality of service issues. But yeah, it's a complicated business. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Nope, I agree with you on that. The other one that I thought was of interest, I mean, you made the list, so obviously I'm speaking to the choir on this one, was the
I'm not
Booking Holdings.
necessarily interested in these. I just make lists.
With the Booking Holdings, the integration
Oh,
payment processes, putting things together so that there's a little bit more seamless connectivity of variations of
yeah.
payment types and so forth. I
Oh,
got a
yeah.
mixed feeling about that. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no. That makes all the sense in the world for booking. Let me
Yeah,
tell you. Yeah.
putting down notes
What they
for
can
that.
do, if those guys can do end to end, that's yeah, that is the end game for these guys. Because the game for the OTAs is how do you satisfy these travelers' needs from an end-to-end basis, which is the same thing as the tour operators in these all-inclusive resorts doing, and the major hotel brands. That's it. Because if you can do that, you go, you're leaving. Are you going to drive to the airport and park? Are you going to take an Uber or a Lyft? Well, a lot of that depends on how many people are there. What are you doing? What's involved? How much is
Hmm.
the parking? How long are you going to stay? That's a simple decision. But then you're going to get through the airport. Hey, are you going to get everybody on TSA pre-check and clear? And then you're going to go hang out at the airline club because you've got your platinum card or whatever, whatever that gives you those benefits. You're going to get in. Are you flying basic economy where your family is going to be scattered across the galaxy? I flew back on a flight from on American actually. American's basic economy is not as good as as deltas. There are a lot of
Yeah.
interesting things, but there was a family who basically got scattered through a cabin. They booked it and they just
Hmm.
sat down in a row together, right? And it created chaos. There were people moving all over the place, and the flight attendants weren't helping anything because they didn't want to get involved to go break up the family, get the little kids who are, under 8 separated. That's not a good solution. And people who paid for upgraded seats and things like that, it's ugly. But what are
Oh,
these
I've
guys
had
going to
that
go through
problem.
all the way through? They arrive in Cancun. Boy, you want a good experience? Take the non-stop shuttle so you don't stop 8 places on the way to your hotel. You will get
Yeah.
2 more hours of beach time, sort of thing. So all that, how do you program that all the way in? Oh, you're going to go zip lining over there or go see those, the pyramids.
I think one of the things
That's
that that,
right.
that interfere with some of that is the liability functions of accepting payment for something that you don't necessarily control. I remember it goes back several years, but down in the Keys when I was down there running hotels, we had a dive shop that we had operated for one of our hotels. We leased out the space for them, and we had a dive package. And down the road, another hotel did the same thing, and they inclusively took the package money and then paid the dive shop for their portion of it. And unfortunately, they had a tragedy with a dive. A person died. Can't get worse than that. And sued the hotel as well because they basically said, "Hey, we paid you." And even though they signed a liability release with the dive shop, and the dive shop is like, hey, look, they clearly didn't follow the rules we gave them. It was the person's own fault, for so forth. The family, distraught as it was, we're still looking for those who they want to, the land of suing, chase the dive shop and then chase the hotel because the hotel received the payment that was inherently a part of the program.
And you don't even need that. This is the worst one I have ever heard of. All-inclusive resort in Mexico. A guy gets blind drunk at that resort, right? I mean, because it's unlimited alcohol, right?
Right.
Wanders down the beach, joins a scuba thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
That he didn't pay for. He didn't sign up for. He didn't pay for. He just kind of joined the group, got all the stuff, dies, right? A young guy has children. What happens here? You kind of go, that was really stupid. You need personal responsibility. Horrible situation, but obviously, the hotel's not liable. Well, the lawyers, come in. What are you? Number one, Eastern District of Texas. If you have one of these suits, that is the most sympathetic area you can possibly get in terms of juries. And they went after the tour operator who sold the
Yeah.
trip. The tour
Yeah.
operator does not manage or operate the hotel, did not have an affiliation with that diving thing at all. And so I happened to work for that tour operator. It was Mark Travel. And the insurance company, and nothing against Mark Travel, I mean, they wanted to fight it because it was $1 million, right? And they're like, wow, I don't think we could have done anything to stop him from doing that, sort of thing. I mean, if we had known about it, we could have, but we have not. We booked the trip, sort of thing, and we're really sorry. This is horrible. Can we do anything? But there's nothing we could have done to prevent that, I don't think, sort of thing. Aside from saying you can't fly to Mexico because we foresee the future because you're in, you are irresponsible and you
Right.
could kill yourself. So they did that. The insurance company basically said, settle.
Wow.
It's not worth fighting it in court. You are going to spend so much money, you will lose. Give them the $1 million and everyone moves on with their lives. And they went back and forth. The legal counsel for Mark Travel, Peter Capper was fantastic. And he just kind of went, wow, yeah, we've got to settle. They didn't want to, they shouldn't have, but that's how it works. And yeah, you got some really ugly, and that's another situation why Google would never want to be an online travel agency. Sort of
Yeah.
thing, right? We're a little bit more removed. In travel agencies, go, I have an agency relationship with whatever the vendor. They can kind of go, when you're a tour operator, and again, with the form of payment, if you start being the merchant of record and things like that, watch out. hey, that was your money. You bought that. You had, you know, you had skin in the game there. So anyway, HTNG, Hospitality Technology Next Generation, is working on some open payments. They're developing something, the Open Payments Alliance. Um, Lots of work to be done on that, particularly, right now you have the virtual credit cards and things like that, the VCCs floating around, which kind of add another mouth to feed in the settlement process. They were talking about some payments manager, bringing in like a channel manager. Got to be really careful. The more mouths to feed, the worse it gets financially. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, there's a huge amount of area to clean up payments and make it very, very seamless and go
Mm-hmm.
tie it in. That is a huge pain point. So,
I thought this one about Amazon contacting operators for secret tours, activities,
oh
initiatives was a little
yeah,
juicy.
somebody's
Uh,
somebody's violating their NDA.
right?
Oh yeah,
Because that's a little bit of going off the reservation.
yeah, yeah. Amazon cannot be, a tool called Amazon Destinations. Um, uh, yeah, to really see, what's going on with this brand. So yeah, and what's funny, yeah, they did talk to a guy who has not been contacted on, but they're requiring operators interested in learning more about their initiative to sign a non-disclosure agreement. It's like, no shit. Yeah, and it probably says on that non-disclosure agreement that you won't even talk about having this non-disclosure agreement, which is certainly how a lot of them with my clients work. So, yeah, it's interesting to see what they're doing. But yeah, it's too big a sector. Amazon has to play in here at some point. Somehow, it just depends on all the other stuff that they're doing. And
Yeah.
when does it make sense? How can they do it really efficiently? How can they make sure it works? And going back to the Disney thing, I think Amazon may not have these three stated goals, but it is kind of like the customers better love it. It better work. Maybe not for the Amazon employees. Maybe it's more like it better work financially for Amazon. And then, yeah, make sure it works properly. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
they'll just kill it. They'll test it and kill it like they do with everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they have the ability and the size and skill to be able to do that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
But the funny thing was with this was what I thought was the really interesting. Amazon Destinations shuttered in 2015, right? And the link that they had was to a Skift article from April, right? So Amazon tried it in, they announced it, or it got out in April of 2015, and it was dead by October or November, right? So, but yeah, they're at it again. They're poking around to see what they can do. And yeah, they quoted, Brian Nowak is really, really smart guy with Morgan Stanley. And he said, online travel has proven to be immune to Amazon disruption so far. But as we've seen with other categories, that doesn't mean Amazon won't try again, and they should, right? And that's the bottom line, to make some, and talking about this frictionless thing with forms of payment and Prime, and hey, you're subscribed, can you go get a deal, and it just happens. That's a, yeah.
yeah. Hey, I saw that you picked up on a really cool article on 17 people that you should follow in social media for hospitality.
I did, and some of those people, I mean, they really hit some iconic individuals in
Hey,
that list.
kudos
I
to
mean, they
Jason
had Bill
Freed.
Marriott. Well, no, but they had Bill Marriott, Chip Conley, definitely Chip Conley. Just, I'm like, complete, fanboy for him. Lindsay
Yeah.
Uberoff, who runs Preferred. I wasn't familiar with a couple of them. Jan Freitag with STR, fantastic, really intelligent. Ian Traeger, certainly,
Yeah. He's
can
around.
we follow things like that. The Hotel Hell guy.
What about that 16-year-old girl, Lauren
The
Gray? I
Hotel
mean, honestly,
Impossible.
what's up with that?
Daniel Craig. I'm not familiar with Lord. Well, Jason Fried, who's now in
Jason,
Bueno.
man. Jason
Great.
really is a great writer.
Great guy,
Jason
Chip
is really great.
Connolly, and then somebody.
16-year-old girl.
I want to know. Well, on some of these, people have relationships with the business, and they have some sort of, I'm not sure what, but not only was Lauren Gray in there, but there was also a link to the Hospitality Digital Marketing website in there, and a
I know,
mention
right?
of, this, Week in Hospitality Marketing show. How did you get on the CrowdRiff list, Lauren? What will you
I
share your
do not
secret,
know,
or
but
come on?
I
Okay.
tell you what, I've been
What
saying
about
nothing
what
but thank you
about
to
your
Julia and CrowdRiff since then.
what
Huh?
have you ever met Julia?
No, I have not. I have not met Julia.
You never met Julia. You've never
Oh,
had any interaction with CrowdRiff as a customer, or recommended it for your
no.
clients or anything. They just
Oh,
found you.
yeah, which was pretty impressive. I mean, I appreciate
That
it.
is
And
pretty
it was
impressive.
funny because I'm looking at my LinkedIn stuff and it's like, congratulations, Lauren. Congratulations, Lauren. I'm like, the hell, congratulations, what? And I go on there and I see the link to it and I pop up. I'm like, 70, well, that's neat. I start scrolling down. I'm like, Bill Marriott. Okay, great. And Jason, of course, is great. He has great articles and all the rest of it. As long as like,
Oh yeah,
but they picked my Twitter account. I'm like, Twitter, really? It's like, so now I'm
yeah.
making a point that I got to make sure I got to post all the good stuff on Twitter because I usually use that as a backup because, as you know, I have not I have a doppelganger. Yeah, I have a
Oh
16-year-old
yes.
girl, Lauren Gray, who is quite famous in the music circles, music videos, and musicality, and all that other stuff. That has very large followings on other platforms, Instagram being the primary one, but she does not, unfortunately, on Twitter have her name. I have it as Lauren Gray, so a lot of people mistake me for her, which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
And I get these odd followings of people that get mad at me because I'm not the Lauren Gray that they thought. These are not the droids you were looking for.
I've never really been able to tell the two of you apart, though. It's very
I
confusing.
know. I mean, you never
Very
see us in the same
high
room, which
brand.
just itself is right the
That's
issue.
right.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
highly suspicious. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
It does make it
very
very highly
interesting.
suspicious. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, congratulations on making the list. And I mean, it was a pretty nuanced list, like Michael Haraba and things like
yeah,
that. There were folks I followed on Twitter for years, 7, 8, 10 years, sort of
yeah.
thing.
No, there's some good names. I was very taken back by the fact that I got thrown into the list for that, and I'm very appreciative of it. Julie, if you are listening to the show or see
So
this, I do
you should
sincerely
certainly
appreciate.
be flattered by inclusion on the list. And what we're basically saying is that your inclusion does not kind of negate the value of the list, right?
That's
So if
right.
you want to be clear.
The weakest link on the list. No, they're and Jason as well. Jason and he's been saying he always wants to go on the show, and I never really keep pursuing it. I really need to get Jason on the show.
Yeah,
Jason is brilliant. He is insightful. He's a lot like you when it comes to just knowing so many things about what's going on in the space and who's doing what, where, and how.
yeah.
Duetto was very lucky to get him from where he was at to bring him into their organization because he's excellent at what he does. He's a great content writer on top of being able to keep on top of the news and what's
Right.
happening and so
Well,
forth.
and he had a journalism background. Yeah, he's at Hotel News Now for, I think, kind of their inaugural guy who was kind of
Yeah, he
covering
was. Yeah,
covering
Mr.
things like
Smith went
that.
over and put him as starting point for that.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, he's been in the space for a long time and connected very, very well for a lot of this stuff. So actually, if for those who are planning on not next, yeah, it is next week, the data conference next week. Are you going?
I am not. I had gone like the last 2 or 3 years, but I got a conflict. So
Yeah,
no.
I was doing so much travel. I wanted to make a month that I didn't travel. So
Nashville's great. It's generally a very good
it's an
conference.
excellent conference. It usually
Lots
sells
of
out each year.
wonky discussion. They've gotten off a little bit for a while. They were kind of on a pay to play thing for the presenters.
Yeah,
For 2 or 3 years, they kind of wandered into a swamp. But since then, it's been really pretty good.
yep, yep. And then again, they've in times past have sold out where you can't even
Yeah,
get
they're
in after.
Sold out again this year.
Yeah, which I always enjoy conferences that have that limitation because then by being in there that the content's going to be worth the interest that people are providing it. That you're not just there to show up and hopefully enough numbers to show up and that feeds the vendors that come to try to sell. You're not dumping enough fish into a bin. You're saying, hey, look, this is our size and this is what we want. And once we're full, we're done. We're not just going to look for a bigger venue, which some of these conferences sometimes try to do and stuff. But yeah,
Should
so
we hit the rut roll?
that's-
I mean, we're up at the top of the hour. I think we should.
Oh yeah, you're right. Hey, all right, so rot row time.
I thought we had a variety of topics here. I mean, Ed St. Ange, well, and it's good we didn't make it the rut row because he didn't show up for the show. So, Ed, if you don't show up, your proposed rut row won't make it to the list. But he did have one on Instagram's lax privacy practices, let a trusted partner track millions of users' physical locations, secretly save their stories, and flout its rules. It's like, yeah, well, it's a Facebook property. this is news, sort of thing. So, yeah,
Good point. Good
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Again, Facebook on brand, completely on brand.
Yeah,
So,
and of course, changing their name for Instagram and WhatsApp is of course going to fool everybody.
yeah,
They're going
well,
to say,
that's purely positioning, I think, to try to, if some of these things to break these guys up. So what Facebook is pretty much reinforcing. I bet, I don't know. Yeah, Amazon spins Amazon Web Services, or Google spins YouTube, or somebody makes some sort of gratuitous move to just say, "See, we're doing this. Leave us alone." And they love. I'm sure those other organizations love nothing more than Facebook doing this stuff, and just go, "Look over there. Look that way. Look over.
yeah,
Go watch them. Yeah,
yeah,
don't look at us. We're fine. There are problems there." So,
yeah, exactly true. But
but
so our rot row of choice today.
waking up to a stranger in a hotel bed, in a hotel room bed. So this is a fellow who went to sleep in his hotel room, and he woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a drunk individual who apparently had the room across the hall, who was somehow sleeping in his bed, not doing anything, just dead drunk and in the wrong room and sleeping with him, which is not a good situation.
So what do you think they said to Stuart when they woke him up? Like, hey, Stuart, buddy.
Well, that's true. That's why Ed and Stuart are not on the show. It was Ed in the room, and Stuart came in. And it is the story of how they've met, and it is rather touching.
It is touching, yes. It is. That's true.
Yeah.
But it just goes to remind people from a safety perspective, and Stuart mentioned this earlier before he had to duck out earlier, was, always lock and latch your doors. There's even more preventative things to do, although I don't necessarily recommend them, because of during fire situations and so forth, should you need it, you want people to be able to, proper staff to be able to get into your room. You don't want to door jam yourself.
Do not move your furniture in front of the door.
Yeah, and door jam your doors and so forth, because you want proper personnel that, should there be an emergency need to get into your room, they can. That being said, you should be able to prevent most non-authorized personnel to not be in your room, including, and might I say, just check the connecting door if you're in a room that has a connecting door latch, that it is locked.
Oh yeah.
Because sometimes those things inadvertently get unlocked, and that may allow the room next to you to have access to your room that you wouldn't necessarily know.
And in many cases, people may just look at that door and go, "What is that door? Open it!" And all of a sudden, you're open. They push on it, and it just swings open.
Oh, yeah, it's just an extra good security to it. And to that end, also look on the back of the front door to make sure you know where the stair egress is. Should you need it during an emergency situation. My wife gets mad at me a lot of times, but every time we travel somewhere and go into a hotel, one of the first questions I ask her after we settle into the room is, "Where's the stairs?"
Yeah.
And at first, she get irritated because she wouldn't look. Now she looks, so now it's a game of like, well, it's right to the left down to 3 doors. It's just like when you're on an airplane where it says count how many rows. Honestly, count how many rows. Know where the closest is, because as you can see by the news, as tragic as it has been this past week, and unfortunately through travel tragedies as well, things happen that people don't plan for. And knowing some of these things, knowing where the exits are in case of a fire, knowing where the exit is in case there's a plane, they're on a plane, you need to know that. Those things are important. That it's just not the rhetoric you have to listen through while you're waiting for your first cocktail.
But Lauren, do you really think it was necessary to impress the importance of that on Renee, to actually set a fire in your room in the middle of the night? And then
hey, training's training,
there with
right?
your arms
You got to
going,
be.
You don't know where to go. See, I told you.
But
so.
I'm also
and now
the
your
person,
hair's on fire. See?
But I'm also the same person that travels, and you've laughed at me for this, that I have my own CO2 and smoke sensor, because I know this. I know the maintenance cycles of hotels, having run them, and I know that not everything works to spec all the time, and I don't want to be that room that's out of spec.
Okay,
so
you've worked in hotels. You also don't eat in any restaurants when you travel. You try not to to touch any
And I wear rubber
escalator or
gloves,
to
so yeah, it's
sit
that's why
down
I
on
also bring a UV light with
any
me for
form
my
of
remote.
transportation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I bring UV lights for faucet handles, doorknobs, and remotes.
Lauren Bubble Boy Gray.
Oh yeah, I travel with a UV light, and I'll flip up the mattress a little bit just to make sure we're living in a good, clean space.
Oh, I
It's
thought that
been
was always a black light that you just kind of did that, and you maybe had like a little,
oh yeah, no, I have
little
I have a
disco
light down
ball or
the-
something you could have and things like that.
yeah, I just doing the
Atmosphere.
traveling that I'm doing. The two things I don't want to do is be sick, or have something where having seen from the other side of the experience where the person has gotten bed bugs or something or anything like this. People don't understand what you have to go through. Do you really want to end up home with your suitcase, your luggage, your clothes, having come from a hotel that you just found out you have bed bugs in? You
Yeah.
can't. So your
Yeah.
world changes at that point. Your travel changes at that point.
Oh yeah.
So, it's better to take 2 ounces of paranoid caution in my mind than it is to go over and unfortunately find out in the after effect. I know
So
it sounds silly, but
you say that gallon bag that you can take into TSA should be filled with paranoid caution, basically.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, right. Hey,
Um,
my backpack is probably always flagged. It's like, excuse me, sir, is this yours? Yeah, because it's
yeah,
just
I know.
a collection of stuff that's like, what's that? Oh, that's a
Well,
360 camera.
it's also over 70 pounds, so it also triggers some sort of weight and balance issue for the airline as well. So yeah.
Yeah, they make me sit the opposite side of my bag when I'm on a plane. But,
Yeah, but
anyways,
I thought the interesting part of this story, which was a nuance, was that the gentleman was only wearing his tidy whities. He had nothing else. He had no luggage. He had no clothes, basically, and was
he was
in there,
traveling
which
light.
really does, yeah, that it raises lots of issue here. But and this happened to me earlier, not this week, last week. I was not paying attention, and I had, just a regular card key, going down, walking down the hall, and I was kind of in a hurry, or I don't even think I was in a hurry. I just wasn't paying attention. Went and swiped the card, and it opened the door, and I looked up. I did not open the door all the way. It was the wrong room, and it worked.
And
It
the
was like
keyword, wow.
the key worked. And so I didn't really talk to the hotel about it. I didn't have time. I did have to kind of run out and get changed and go to an event. But I just kind of thought with that going, now are they issuing like floor keys or pass keys? Is something wrong? Is the randomization of this key just coincidental that it would
Yeah.
open, the room next door? But that was concerning. So, yeah. So, and I always sleep. I always do the little bar.
The latch and
Yeah,
everything. Yeah, you need to for that. Yep. Yep.
which is important. Yeah. So,
Well, I
those
think we did a good job of hitting your topics. I mean, we went through pretty much.
I think so.
I mean, we didn't hit the synthetic social media influencers.
I thought those whole synthetic social media influencers, I think, are pretty. I can't imagine those those really catching on. But,
No, but by the merit of what it can be, it's kind of like building a mascot. I looked at it from a point of view of just building a mascot.
Yeah.
For yourself that but they can do it for multiple people. You're not like you're inheriting them as you're the sole purpose that has these little plastic toys that animate that talk about your product. They do it for other products, but that it's an endorsement where it's kind of like your little mascot. Like these people talk about your product. It is. It's yeah. Okay, sure. It might be cute and catchy for some people, but I don't think you're going to see any Marriott animations coming in and then they're going to highlight a Hyatt or Hilton afterwards or something. I don't think you're going to have a hotel influencer animation. Now you might have an AI face. I can see this going not from the animation point of view, but from a synthetic person where it's not a real person, but they turn into Max Headroom for us of that age. That talk about products and certain things and so forth, but it's all AI. I can see that possibly being an aspect of that, but no, not this part.
Hey, one other thing this probably should have been the Rut-Row, which unfortunately there isn't an article. It's just based on my own analysis where I've been following the STR weekly, occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR since 2006, right, on a weekly basis. And this week marks the fourth week where RevPAR has been negative or flat. The third week, 1 out of the 4 weeks, it was zero, which is certainly not a good thing. And that's on a year-over-year comparison. But worse yet, the RevPAR, if you start looking at a 12-month moving average, it peaked at 86.38 the week ending July 6th. Since then, it has been eroding. So, and that is the first time, boy, I don't know where the valley was. I could probably go back and look in 2010 or 2015, but that has been an upward slope. I'm sure I have this number. Yeah, okay. The 27th of February 2010, RevPAR bottomed out at 53.14. Right, that is pretty low. And since then, yeah, and now it peaked, 6th of July, 2019. That is quite a run, and it is now dropping off. So the last time things started dropping off like this, the global financial crisis hit 90 days later. So I'm not predicting anything, but
I think,
watch out.
and by all means,
October, I don't know.
as Tim would say, I am
hope
not a
not.
financial analyst, nor am I a financial consultant, and all this is my own personal opinion of this. But people often mistake the fact that current economic situation is based on current economic decisions. In fact, most of what we're living through right now was decisions and processes that were done back when Obama was still president. Not giving him necessarily direct credit or blame, just cycles of decisions and cycles of events have a very long timeline of tail to this. So as much as politicians like to take current credit for things, really in effect, they're writing a decision process that is predicating most of what their involvement was.
Yeah.
Now, with that in hospitality also is pipelines and supply and demand and market demands and so forth. If you look at face value of what we're looking at right now, we've had one of the highest travel markets, drive markets in the United States, North America, just taking North America right now, okay, that we have had in recent years. It actually peaked. It was the highest since, I think they said 1980 something or other, and that was based on percentage of population, not necessarily quantity of travel. It was just percentage of travel population. So we're bigger than that, and yet,
well, you haven't had big gas price strikes, right? Yeah, people remember, hey, it was $4 a gallon now.
Right. So here we have low gas prices, maximum travel, drive travel, which usually
high employment. Yeah.
High unemployment.
No, high.
So you have
employment.
High employment.
Low unemployment.
Yeah, sorry, I'm saying it backwards too. Yeah, high employment. Okay, yeah. So you have economics in places that these numbers should not be doing this, is what I'm saying. These numbers at this time should not be doing this. Even with an infusion of new product in market, it isn't that much new product. In fact, one of the reasons why we've had this sustained length of growth was there was a delay cycle that everybody acknowledged in increased supply that normally happens sooner in the cycle of demand than it did after 08, 09, because people were like, we're not going to just jump on building a new hotel. Let's just maximize what we got right now. So there was a delay factor before supply started coming in. Now, of course, we all know the supply is going to exceed demand this upcoming, within the next 12, 18. So we are now back into that cycle of oversaturation of supply versus the demand for them and so forth. So we know there's going to be a depreciation of RevPAR and ADR capabilities and so forth in certain markets where this is the case. But it shouldn't be happening right now at this time this way. That's the thing that's like
really, really good right now. And
yeah. It should still have some positive aspect to it.
The Fed sawing off a quarter point of on interest rates now. You go, wait a second, this is not when you do that.
Right.
Sort of thing. You cut interest rates when things are really bad. And they're saying, they haven't done this in a decade. And it's like, well, yeah, because there's not a global financial crisis. And again, my fear is when there's a downturn, watch out. Now, maybe we've had this very long, not spiky growth. I mean, we're getting volatility now, but boy, when there's a downturn, the Fed only has 2% to play with in terms of adjusting interest rates. That's not a lot of play, considering how overheated the economy is. So everybody's trying to keep these things kind of propped up artificially, and the longer you do that, the worse it's going to be in terms of things coming.
And the trade stuff, as unnecessary as that is, the volatility, I think, we're not accounting for, and we're probably going to have these discussions in shows to come, the impact of the tragedies as they are happening, the tensions and the insecurities that they create, the uncertainties that they create, are obviously going to have some sort of impact level.
You have other companies giving travel advisories not to travel to the U.S.
Strangely, some of those countries you wouldn't care because you wouldn't want to go there anyway. But yes, Venezuela has their own issues, but it is a great way for them to kind of throw back in our face.
Attitudes towards immigrants and foreigners or various religions, the difficulty in having, not honoring asylum seekers, not having, just even, passports, visa control, regular tourist sort of things worked up, is just insane. And then you layer on the trade fears, all that sort of stuff. All of a sudden, you don't have a robust international market, and those travelers are going to other destinations. It isn't that they have stopped traveling; they're going to more hospitable destinations, and that doesn't help either. So I fear on a downturn. I don't want to be saying that this is going to be horrible, but a lot of the I just look at the fundamentals and go, these aren't good. And watch out, because if the downturn, especially if there's some sort of external event like what happened with with certainly the real estate markets and things like that, because of all those silly horrible loans that collapsed out.
The volatility. You got something. The one thing that is expanded. The one thing that's expanded over time that hasn't turned its ugly head is the expansion of quick to decide communications, but what now is being called fake news and things like this, the dissemination of data with the influences of outside forces, Russian if they may be or not, but this ability to create panic in a crowd, and that connected to consumer confidence is an issue that you can sit here all day long and say, I have a good job and I make money and I have expendable money and I have interest in going to places, but my confidence in what the world is like, whether it's because of safety concerns or financial concerns of stability or whatever, will make me say, I'm not going to do it this time. I'm not going to travel this time. I'm not going to do that trip this time. And that is all it takes for, no matter how good of a rate strategy you have, no matter how quality product you have, location-based that it is in, your distribution of content, the way you have it, if there is a confidence issue on people not wanting to exercise a choice to come see you, there's nothing better that you can do to help yourself. You're going to sit there with an empty room. So, anyways.
And when you get the, whatever the competitor who's sitting there and making, irrational revenue management decisions, you can call them idiots. You can say that that's a horrible, dumb thing to do for them. It impacts you because they start looking at it going, wow, that's a tremendous value.
Right.
And they haven't maybe cut their staff and done all this stuff yet. They're going to have to if they keep sustaining the strategy.
But again, it goes back to cash flow and ability to make payroll and everything else like this that, like we had earlier in the shows, we talked about it. You can sit empty and write with the rate that you should have, or you can have occupancy and get what monies you can so you have cash flow, even though you're not producing profitability, but you are sustaining your business.
Difference between being right and dead right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. Well, now that we've saved gloom and doom for the end of the show,
well, and Lauren, where can people find you?
Well, gee golly,
aside from the Crowd Riff, just go to crowdriff.com.
From my Twitter account at Lauren Gray, you can find this episode, this show, and all previous 208 shows at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. There you'll see links to both the archives and to all the shows that are currently for this year, direct links to those as well. And yeah, that's it for right now. I am flattered by CrowdRiff. Thank you again for having me into such esteemed company. Hopefully I'll merit that choice of yours and make sure I put quality content on my Twitter.
We could actually observe during the show your head getting bigger.
It was too. Hey, but the nice part is that the live show, Ed poo-pooed on me for simulcasting on what he called a dead channel, Periscope, which goes into my Twitter feed. Ha, Ed. Obviously, somebody's seeing the show on Twitter, but we are.
I don't know if they saw that.
Fuel Travel, we're on their Facebook page, and we're also on HSMAI's APAC, Asian Pacific, and HSMAI's EU.
I think your press posse and the massive, your group of handlers have done
Yeah,
a remarkable job on
remarkable
your
job getting
branding
out.
initiative.
Yeah. So, Mr. Robert Cole, where can they find you and everything Rock
I'm
Cheetah?
at rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole on all those social channels.
Robert, as always, thank you for putting together another amazing curated list of great content. Thank you to Mr. Stuart Butler who joined us. Apologies to Tim, Peter, and Ed and Holly, who we did not have time to get on the show today. Um,
Tim,